know, it's been so nice seeing a shoe get so much pre-launch hype, and it isn't a $250 plus race day super shoe. Today we're talking about the new MIZUNO Neo Vista, and right off the bat, this shoe is worth a closer look. Let's get into it. Let's get started with those disclosures. Mizuno was good enough to send me the Neo Vista for the purpose of review. However, they haven't told me what to say. They don't have any editorial privileges, and all the thoughts and opinions are my own. With that said, you can pick up a pair of the Mizuno Neo Vista for $180. And of course, I'll place links in the show notes below in case you want to pick up a pair for yourself. So you might be looking at this shoe wondering what it is, right? Mizuno has made some changes to the normal aesthetic of a running shoe. The Neo Vista is definitely more booty shaped. We've got a higher top than a traditional running shoe, but ultimately this is a super trainer. So it's a little more than a trainer, a little less than a race day shoe. But I think a few of you are going to be surprised how big of a range the Neo Vista has. So let's get started with those specs. We have 44.5 in the heel, 36.5 in the forefoot for an 8mm drop. That's right, 44.5 millimeters in the heel. That is a big stack height. And I guess that's one of the criteria for making it a super trainer. You know, anything over 40 millimeters is over the limit of world athletics to be used in competition. Now, clearly this isn't designed to be a competition level shoe, but either way, we're over the limit. 44.5, that's a lot of stack. Now, there are a lot of pluses and minuses with this much midsole foam, but we'll get to those in a second. Now, just looking at the shoe, you would think that perhaps it's a little heavy. I mean, with this much foam on the bottom, that's a normal expectation. Well, Mizuno claims that a US men's size 9 would tip the scale at 9.4 ounces or 266 grams. However, in my size, a US men's size 13, it tips the scale at 11.7 ounces or 331 grams. So right off the bat, I am surprised how light this shoe is, and it feels pretty light in my hands. Now, I know light is all relative. When you get to a size 13, to some of you, shoes stop becoming light, but for me, who is used to running in this size shoe, it is a pretty light shoe, especially for what it's used for. Okay, so let's start at the top. Let's work our way down. I'm going to hold up this heel collar right here, but I think we need to move ahead from the heel collar and go immediately to the upper, then we'll come back to the heel collar, because Mizuno is using a soft knit upper, and usually I kind of give a knit upper a bit of a side eye, but I gotta say, I think this is probably the best knit upper that I have ever felt on my foot, and there's a couple reasons for this. Now, Mizuno has used a lot of different weaves throughout the upper in order to give it a little bit of structure, and this upper feels very compressive. So when I put my foot in, the upper doesn't feel like it's saggy, which I have had from other knit upper shoes. So let's come back to the heel collar. We just have a very thin, it's like one layer of knit, but because that knit upper is so soft, you don't really need any padding around here. I didn't have any rubbing, and it was comfortable for every run I went out in it. While we're back here, look at this big heel pull. This is actually pretty handy to get on a shoe with a knit upper. I actually used it on this shoe. Talk about the heel counter. Now, the heel counter is quite soft. Look, I can press it down like this, but it's not as soft as the rest of the upper. There is a little bit of reinforcement. It's an underlay on the inside, and that underlay kind of comes up like this diagonally on the lateral, comes around on the medial side. So you are getting a little more rigidity right here in the heel than you are on the rest of the upper. But also, surprisingly, I didn't have any heel slip in this shoe. And I think I can again give credit to this knit upper for that. If we look closely around the back, we can see these different weave patterns that Mizuno has included in this upper, and it all comes together to contribute to a nice heel lockdown. Now, there aren't many overlays. We've got the Mizuno running bird here on the lateral edge. There's a small underlay coming around the toe box just to give that a little bit of volume, let your feet breathe inside the shoe. We have this overlay with the laces going through right here, and I guess this could be for the lace lock method, and you can see I have the laces coming out of the second hole. So the hole furthest back is the one I'm using to lace this shoe down on my foot. Now, that's how it came in the box, and I haven't changed it. But as it was totally comfortable this way, I didn't think I'd bother mess with it. On the medial side of the heel, we got it's a small rubber coin just with the Mizuno logo on, and it's very small, it's very thin. I think that's just for aesthetic purposes only. And then just the one thing I want to point out is this small rubber piece right on the top of the tongue. Oh, it's not really a tongue, is it, when it's a knit upper? But on the tongue area of the shoe, we've got this small rubber bit right here, and I found that this just provides enough padding for when I cinch those laces down right across here. It stops those laces from biting into the top of your foot where you tie them. So pretty well thought out. Now, as far as the eyelet chain, Mizuno is kind of using a shock cord, and it starts right at the bottom of the eyelet chain, goes all the way up to the top with little cutouts, and that's where the laces are looped through that shock cord. Now, I say shock cord. I don't think it has much stretch looking at it, but that's what it looks like. Now, the Neo Vista does fit me true to size. The shoe fits me just as well as every other Mizuno shoe, and just as well as pretty much every other shoe out there. But with that said, I did find the upper to have quite a lot of volume, especially with my narrow feet, and that becomes apparent when we look at the eyelet chain right here, and I think this is showing up on camera pretty well, but you can see these ridges right here. And because we're using a one-piece knit upper, when I cinch it down, that extra knit upper needs to go somewhere. And it kind of buckles up underneath the laces. And I was a little worried when I put this shoe on and I saw that, but I've run a fair bit in the Neo Vista and I didn't have any hot spots. In fact, it wasn't even noticeable once this shoe was tied on. So I don't want you to worry about that if you have narrow feet. If your feet are just slightly bigger than narrow, I think the Neo Vista is going to fit your foot perfectly, and you may or may not get this bunching in the middle. But whether you do or you don't, I think the shoe's going to work just fine. I had plenty of room in my toe box, and overall it was a really solid fit. Now, back to this knit upper for just a second, because I've already said I'm not a fan of knit uppers, but I think that is more geographically based than anything else. I like how they feel on my foot, but because I live in a warm climate, knit uppers are sometimes a little warm. You know, in the middle of summer, I don't want to put a jumper on my feet and then go out for a run, but with a knit upper, that's effectively what I'm doing. But what I do like is that this soft knit upper on the Neo Vista is a little thinner than other knit uppers that I've used. And I'm really thinking of the Wave Neo Ultra. That was a shoe that came out a couple of years ago, and they also had a knit upper, and it was substantially more thick than the Neo Vista. So as far as knit uppers go, this is definitely not the warmest that I've experienced. Oh, just as an aside, this soft knit upper is using over 90% recycled materials. As always, it's good when a company has their eye on the environment. I like to see it. Okay, let's come down to the midsole. And look, I've said it before, I will definitely say it again, but this is where the magic happens. And in the Neo Vista, it is really where the magic happens. And before I explain this midsole, it is because of this midsole that I think this is the best Mizuno shoe that I have ever worn. And that's saying a lot. Mizuno has come out with a lot of gems in the past. Even this Wave Rebellion Pro 2. I prefer running in the Neo Vista than this. And here's why. Generally speaking, I do prefer a softer ride, or at least when I first put my foot into a shoe and I start running, I really like a softer ride. And Mizuno is using a brand new foam. It's the Energy Next, or NXT, and it's a bio-based midsole compound, and we have 2 layers of it. And then in between these 2 layers of Energy Next is the Mizuno wave plate. And the wave plate on the Neo Vista and the wave plates in general is a glass fiber reinforced nylon. And basically that plate is giving a little bit of structure and rigidity to the foam, because the foam is very soft. Now, the best part of the Mizuno wave plate is that it's stiff, but it's not too stiff. And it certainly doesn't wear you out the way some carbon plated shoes may. So I guess what I'm saying that I don't get plate fatigue. It seems like I could run in this shoe all day and not have any issues. Let's come down to the outsole and look at this. This is quite surprising, isn't it? Look at this giant valley coming through the middle. We've got full coverage rubber outsole. And of course we get a good look at this wave plate all the way from the forefoot down to the heel. Now this giant piece of carved out rubber is definitely going to save weight. I mean, anything that isn't there is going to save weight, right? But the decoupling from the medial to the lateral side actually contributes to a more stable feeling, and I think softer feeling, especially when I'm hitting down on my lateral heel edge right here. Also, this outsole rubber compound is remarkably softer than what I've experienced in the past. Now in the past, Mizuno has used a lot of their G3 outsole rubber. And it's the same rubber that is used on the Wave Rebellion Pro 2, and this outsole rubber compound is just very stiff. So even if a shoe is soft, when we put the G3 outsole rubber on it, that rubber can lead to a firmer feeling ride. Now, Mizuno has changed that with the outsole rubber on the Neo Vista, and it just contributes to a very soft ride, especially when combined with the Energy Next. Now, I keep talking about how soft this shoe rides, so let's talk about the ride, because my thoughts changed from when I first put on this shoe to when I continued on that first run, and then those thoughts kind of repeated themselves at the beginning and a few minutes into every single run I did. Because as soon as I put on this shoe, it feels so soft, and it feels the kind of soft that is just like putting on a slipper. It feels very bouncy. I mean, it's definitely fun. Now, a few minutes into my ride in this shoe, I actually thought to myself, I wonder if this shoe is too soft for me. Like, is it zapping my energy as I'm running? But it took me a few minutes longer running in it to realize that wasn't the case at all. And that is why I think this shoe is so versatile, because after a couple of miles of running in the shoe, now let's back up. I should say that when I'm running in a shoe and I'm testing it, I am really thinking about it. Like, I'm thinking about my feet, thinking about how they feel, I'm thinking about the turnover, how soft it is, can I feel the plate, you know, all the things. But I found that after a couple of miles, I had kind of drifted away and I wasn't really thinking about the shoe. Then when I brought my mind back to the shoe and I was trying to analyze how I felt, how my foot strike felt, I was actually surprised that I had thought this shoe was too soft, because it's definitely not. It feels soft in the beginning, then when you get into it, it feels like it stiffens up, and I think that has to do with this wave plate. Now guys, I don't want you thinking that this shoe turns from a super soft ride into something really firmer. It doesn't. It's just how I interpreted that softness as the run went on. And that's what I think makes the Neo Vista a very versatile shoe. Because for most of my runs, when I'm testing this shoe, My runs that I went out on were easy runs, they were recovery runs, like the bread and butter miles. But when I went out and I had to do strides, so I'm picking up the pace to, like a 5K effort or so, the shoe felt remarkably snappy. And that snappiness is definitely due to this wave plate. But it's almost like to me that when you're running at slower paces, the feeling of the wave plate kind of goes away. Now, obviously, it doesn't go away. That wave plate is providing the stability to the foam that's needed to run at those easy paces comfortably. But when I had to pick up the pace, and now that I'm bending it, I can feel that that shoe does have a little bit of snap. And the more I ran in it, the more I really decided that this has been my favorite Mizuno shoe ever. And it was so comfortable that I actually found myself thinking that if I ever run a marathon in a Mizuno shoe, if it were to happen today, I'm choosing the Neo Vista. Now, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that the Wave Rebellion Pro is just a little too aggressive for my running style. Like, I cannot keep up the correct running style that shoe really rewards with speed. Maybe at a 5K I can, but definitely not at a marathon. So the Neo Vista is just a little more forgiving. It's a little more well-rounded. And I think a lot of people are really going to appreciate it. Now, Mizuno is also incorporating their Smooth Speed Assist. That's what they call their geometry. And basically, this geometry lessens the load on the calf muscle to improve efficiency at all distances. And I've got to say, with the Neo Vista, it really works for me. So now I want to hear from you. And look, I know, unless you've been hiding under a rock, you have definitely seen the hype surrounding the Neo Vista. So my question is this: are you thinking of picking this up? If you've already run in it, I'd love to hear your opinions too. And if you're waiting a little longer to pick it up and have a few questions, make sure you drop a comment and ask. I am more than happy to tell you whatever I can about the Neo Vista. So with that, it's Matt B. This has been my review of Mizuno's Neo Vista. Be kind, be happy, run well. I'll see you in a couple of days.